It's like that.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go back over.
Sorry.
No.
4 minutes. I should text Megan. She'll be there in 4 minutes.
How was your weekend? Good?
Okay. How about you?
It was good. I worked.
Yeah.
All weekend.
Your appearances for the record, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Christine Shaw on behalf of the state.
Kevin Moran, on behalf of the state. I appreciate you being here for each of your others.
Thank you. Judge Pierre from the
Please rise.
Everyone, please be seated. Everyone had a pleasant weekend while we were away. We are now ready to proceed on to testimony in this matter. Where Ms. Shire next.
Thank you, Judge. The state's going to call Dr. Andrew Falzon.
Dr. I'm going to ask you to come forward, stand directly in front of the clerk here to my left.
It's your left hand on the Bible and jury. State your name for the record.
My name is Andrew Falzon, F-A-L-Z-O-N.
Swear or affirm testimony that you shall give in this matter is the truth.
I do.
Okay, thanks. You're ready, sir.
Good morning. Could you tell me, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what is your profession?
I am a forensic pathologist.
What position do you currently hold?
I am currently employed by the state of New Jersey as the state medical examiner.
So are you a duly licensed physician surgeon?
I have a valid, active New Jersey medical license.
And have you ever been licensed in any other states or locations?
Yes, I have.
Could you tell us what those are?
I have inactive licenses in Pennsylvania, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. I also have inactive licenses in the United Kingdom and Malta.
How long have you been licensed to practice your profession?
Since I graduated medical school in 1986.
And where did you receive your medical training?
At the University of Malta.
And what did you do once you completed your medical training?
I did a 2-year rotating internship, served as 2 years as senior house officer in radiology. I then obtained a master's degree in anatomy from the University of Mississippi Medical Center and moved on to a 4-year general pathology training program at the University of Mississippi. And I then did a 1-year fellowship program in forensic pathology at the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
When you were completing your work at the University of Mississippi, that was in anatomic and clinical pathology?
Correct.
And your final year there, were you the chief resident?
Yes, I was.
And with regard to the fellowship that you completed at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, that was with regard to forensic pathology, correct?
Correct.
And you are currently the head state medical examiner for the state of New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
And how long have you held that position?
Since July of 2015.
Prior to that?
I don't want to interrupt, but I would stipulate on Dr. Falzon's expertise if that helps.
I do, Judge. Dr. Falzon, prior to becoming the head medical examiner for the state of New Jersey, were you the acting medical examiner for the state of New Jersey?
Correct.
Do you have previous medical examiner experience?
Yes, I do.
And could you describe that for us?
Yes, I do.
And could you describe that for us?
Yes, I do.
And could you describe that for us?
Yes, I do.
And could you describe that for us?
A need for Middlesex County from 2001 through 2007, and then I was appointed the county medical examiner for Middlesex County.
And did you also serve as Monmouth County medical examiner?
Middlesex and Monmouth counties had entered into a shared services agreement, and part of my responsibilities at that point also included overseeing Monmouth County.
Does your work as a medical examiner, does that include performing autopsies?
Yes and no. I have conducted autopsies in my career. My most recent appointment is mainly administrative.
How many autopsies would you estimate you've performed over the course of your career?
I would say over 3,500 autopsies.
Can you tell the jurors, what is the American Board of Pathology?
The American Board of Pathology is an organization, it's a professional organization that oversees training in pathology. is a body that reviews institutions providing such training. It also administers examinations in the discipline and certifies people in that field of expertise.
And have you been granted certification by the American Board of Pathology?
Yes, I have.
In what areas?
Anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology.
And that certification is over and above your medical license, correct?
That is correct.
I want to ask you about one of the board memberships that you hold. You noted that you are on the Child Fatality and Near Fatality Review Board, is that correct?
That is correct.
And can you explain what that review board does?
The board reviews all pediatric deaths in the state of New Jersey. There's a main board. There is a SUDI board, sudden unexpected death in infancy, and they review those specific cases. There's also a suicide subcommittee for the board, and that board reviews suicide in pediatric cases. So I sit on the main board in Trenton, and I'm also the chairperson for the suicide subcommittee.
Do you teach anywhere?
Yes, I do.
Where do you teach?
I have an appointment with Rutgers University as part of the training for pathology residents, people training in pathology, physicians training in pathology. They have to rotate for a month during their training at the medical examiner's office, and right now the Rutgers pathology residents in Newark actually rotate through the office.
Have you previously been accepted as an expert witness in New Jersey as well as other states?
Yes, I have.
Judge, I've moved Dr. Falzon as an expert in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology.
Members of the jury, again, as a general, witnesses can testify only as the facts known by them, which will ordinarily does not permit the opinion of the witness to be received as evidence. However, an exception to the rule exists in the case of an expert witness who may give his opinion as to any manner in which he is versed, which is material to the case. Legal terminology, an expert witness is a witness who has some special knowledge, skill, experience, or training that is not possessed by the ordinary juror and who thus may be able to provide assistance to the jury in understanding the evidence presented and determining the facts of the case. You're not bound by such experts' opinion, but you should consider each opinion and give it the weight to which you deem it is entitled, whether that be great or slight, or you may reject it. In examining each opinion, you may consider the reasons given for it, if any, and you may also consider the qualifications and credibility of the expert. With that, please.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Falzon, were you asked to consult on a post-mortem examination on a 3-year-old boy identified as Brendan Creato?
Yes, I was.
And who asked you to consult on the case?
I was approached by Dr. Feigen, the county medical examiner for County.
And did you conduct your own examination of Brendan's remains?
Yes, I did.
And did you document your observations in a letter to me dated November 13th, 2015?
Yes, it is.
Okay, would it assist you in your testimony if you can have a copy of that correspondence in front of you?
Yes,
It's on 381. Judge, I've marked this for identification, states exhibit 381. Can you tell us when did you conduct your examination in this case?
I had conducted the examination on October 16th, 2015.
Okay, and that was a Friday, correct?
Correct.
All right, do you recall where you conducted that examination?
At the Inspira Hospital.
In Woodbury?
Correct.
And what was your task that day? What did you view your task as?
At that point, Brendan Creato had already undergone an autopsy. My role was to review the body, look at the dissected parts on the body, and also review the organs that had been removed and examined.
Did you see photographs of the scene where Brendan was located before you conducted your examination?
I did see some photos, yes.
And at the time you performed your examination, what was your understanding of the circumstances of Brendan's death?
That his body was found by a creek with the lower part of the body partially submerged in water, and that he had been previously reported missing.
Okay. Do you recall who reported him missing?
My recollection is that the father had reported him missing.
So when you have a case like that and you're about to conduct an examination, what are you looking for?
I always say that an autopsy is not a standalone diagnosis. An autopsy doesn't necessarily give you all the answers that you are looking for when conducting a post-mortem examination, trying to establish the cause and matter of death. The autopsy starts with a history, with a narrative of the circumstances surrounding the death. It also includes a scene examination, how the body was found, where the body was found. And then you move on to the autopsy by carefully examining the clothing, doing an external examination of the body, doing an internal examination of the body, and then during the course of the internal examination, you collect any evidence, whether it's blood, urine, bile, for further testing, including toxicology. And then once all that information is gathered, the pathologist will sit down, review the entire case, and at that time formulate the cause and manner of death.
Now, at the time you conducted your examination, what findings were of note to you from the previous examinations that had already been performed?
There were some minor injuries on the body, some abrasions on the face, what appeared to be a resolving bruise on the back of the elbow. There was nothing really outstanding in the examination that clearly indicated what the cause of death was.
Can you describe the condition of Brendan's remains when you conducted your examination with regard to where he had obviously already been examined?
Would that be, I mean, you look...
Sure. For instance, there was already a large Y incision on the front, correct?
Correct, yes.
And I think you already testified that the organs had been removed?
Correct.
And there was also a large incision on the back?
Correct. That would be a routine exam in a case like this.
So starting from that point then, can you describe your examination of Brendan Creato during your follow-up exam?
I re-examined the external surface of the body. He did have a laceration, like a bite mark inside the left cheek. He did have a few what we refer to as petechiae, which are spotty, hemorrhagic pinpoints in the inside of the eyes. There was some minor abrasion, minor bruises, because asphyxia, smothering would have been one of the considerations in the case. I did some further dissection of the face to see if there was any bruising underneath the skin on the face, which there were none. And I also did some further extensive dissections on the back, extending the cuts down the extremities, again looking for bruises that may have been deep and not clearly visible to the naked eye.
And did you find anything when you did the extremities?
No, I did not.
Now the few petechiae that you noted, as well as, I believe you said it looked like a bite mark inside of Brendan's mouth. To your knowledge, had those been noted in either of the two previous examinations that were performed?
No.
Okay, and were those injuries, were they photographed at that time?
Yes, they were.
Doctor, I'm going to hand you what's already in evidence. It states Exhibit 329, 330, and 331. I'm going to ask you to take a look at those. And do those three photographs fairly show the blight marks you referred to as well as the petechia in the eyes?
Yes, we do.
And did you see some petechia in each eye?
Yes.
Can you explain what petechia is?
Like I said, petechiae are tiny pinpoint hemorrhages. Typically we see them inside the eyes. You can also see them on the skin, in the face, on the neck area. You commonly find them in cases of asphyxia. They're essentially a rupture, a break in a tiny blood vessel underneath the surface of the skin on the inside of the eye. You can also find them they can also result from other situations. So if body's lying face down, for example, the pooling by gravity, the blood engorging those blood vessels might result in one of those blood vessels breaking and creating a deeper hemorrhage. Like I said, they were very few and widely scattered. When you see them in asphyxial deaths, typically you're going to see a lot of petechiae, although some forms of asphyxia may have very few or no petechiae. So I refer to petechiae as being consistent with, but not diagnostic of, an asphyxial death.
Can you pull those up for me, please? Go with the lights. Okay, so when you were referring to a broken blood vessel, can you see that from where you are?
Actually, I can.
Okay, good. When you're referring to the petechiae, would that be this red dot that's right here?
That is correct.
Okay, so that was essentially, you said sometimes there can be none, sometimes there can be more. It's not necessarily diagnostic. Is that the word you used?
That is correct.
But it was documented because it was observed, correct?
It was observed.
Okay, can we see State's Exhibit 331? And this is the other eye, correct?
Correct.
And in this eye, was the petechia also in the same location, kind of on the lower lid inside the eye?
Correct.
Okay, and again, it was not a lot, correct?
Correct.
All right. And can we go back to the first one? 330, I'm sorry, 329. With regard to State's Exhibit number 329, now obviously this is a picture inside the mouth, correct?
That is correct.
And the area that you were referring to as bite marks, is that inside the cheek?
Correct.
And that's the left cheek, correct?
Correct.
And again, does that have any particular significance to you?
It could be any number of things. It most likely represents a bite mark, Brendan biting his own cheek. What that actually resulted from is a no. He had a seizure and bit the inside of his mouth. It could have been created during some forceful smothering, but I can't say with absolute certainty.
Okay. So again, it was observed, so it was documented.
It was documented.
Okay. Thank you. Wait, what? Okay, Doctor. Did you, after making these observations, did you also, did you conduct an internal examination?
Yes, it did.
And was there anything that you noted during the course of your internal examination as being significant?
No, I looked at the inside of the body, and as I said, at that point in time, the organs, the heart, lungs, the abdominal organs had been removed. I looked at the inside of the body cavity, and there was nothing there. And I looked at the organs themselves, and there was nothing there.
Now, with regard to the few things that we did just go over, which were really the only new things from the last two autopsies, and I'm referring specifically to your dissection, the petechiae, and the abrasions inside the mouth. With regard to those findings, your correspondence of November 13th said these findings are all considered non-specific. Do you recall that?
Yes, you do.
And can you explain what you mean by that?
Like I mentioned, sometimes you find an injury on the body which may be characteristic of or diagnostic of a specific injury. These injuries had no particular significance. When you wouldn't look at one of these injuries and say, oh, this is from something specific. So the injuries observed were minor and, like I said, non-specific.
At the time, and I'm referring to November of 2015, at that time, did you make a finding or render an opinion with regard to the cause or manner of Brendan's death after your examination of him?
Like I mentioned earlier, the history and circumstances are a crucial part of the determination of cause and manner of death. So if I could read from my report, I said, unfortunately, a thorough investigation of the case may not be able to identify the cause and manner of death in this tragic case. And in the absence of any conclusive findings in the autopsy and or investigation, the cause and manner would have to be ruled as undetermined.
Did you note earlier in your letter some specific things that would assist you or someone else in making a finding with regard to cause and manner?
Right. It was early on in the investigation. I suggested somebody should look at any CCTV footage that may have been available, interviewing of neighbors, people who might have seen the child walking or being carried, review of medical records, things of that nature.
Okay. Did you note in your opinion, the correspondence that you sent, did you note what might be included in the differential diagnosis based on the limited information that you had initially?
Yes, I did. And I said included in the differential diagnosis is smothering, which would leave a paucity of anatomic findings, and drowning, which is essentially a diagnosis exclusion.
Why does smothering leave a paucity of anatomical findings as a lack of findings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Why is that with smothering?
Well, with smothering, again, if you have somebody that may be asleep, drowsy, or drugged, and somebody places a soft pillow over their face, or a plastic bag, for example, that may not leave any symptoms, signs on the body. Obviously, if somebody's strangled, whether it's manually or with a ligature, those type of injuries are going to be marks on the body, and you may. So you can't have asphyxial deaths with significant findings, or you can have them without them.
Between October 15th, which was the day, or I'm sorry, October 16th, I think, was the date that you conducted your examination, and November 13th, which was the day that you drafted that letter that's in front of you, did you receive any updates at all with regard to test results, toxicology, or the investigation?
I don't believe I had all that information at that time.
Now, earlier in this year, were you asked to review certain portions of the case file for the homicide of Brendan Creato?
Yes, I was.
And based on your review of the case file, were you able to form an opinion with regard to the cause and manner of Brendan's death?
Yes, I was.
And do you hold that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes, I do.
And at the conclusion of your entire case review, did you again prepare a report with regard to your findings?
Yes, I did.
And would it assist you in your testimony if you could refer to your report?
Yes.
Judge, this report is marked for identification, states Exhibit 382, and it's dated April 17th, of 2017. Doctor, to begin with, can you tell the jurors what did you review in the case file?
At that point in time, I reviewed a number of items, including the autopsy report that was the first autopsy report that was conducted by Dr. Feige. I also had a second post-mortem exam report by Dr. Seibert. The correspondence that I had provided earlier, pediatrician medical records, and supplementary reports from the Camden County Prosecutor's Office and Haddon Township Police Department.
And the reports that you reviewed from the Camden County Prosecutor's Office, did that include the crime scene detectives' reports?
Yes, it did.
And did you also review the main report of Detective Michael Rhodes?
Yes, it did.
Did you review all the autopsy photos that were taken during all three procedures?
Yes, it did.
And did you also review all the photographs that were taken at the scene down at the creek?
Yes, it did.
Have you since also reviewed all the histological slides, the microscopic slides that were created in this case?
Yes, I asked for the histological slides from the Camden County Prosecutor's Office, and I reviewed these slides. Again, when we do the autopsy, we take small sections from the individual organs to look at a microscope. And in those cases, we're looking for natural disease, and sometimes we look for injuries. It was particularly relevant in this case because Brendan did have a history of asthma, and looking at the sections of the lungs would be particularly significant to demonstrate whether he might have been suffering from an acute exacerbation of his chronic asthma.
Right, so let me back up just a little bit from there. With regard to the autopsy photos that you reviewed, what, if anything, did you see in those photos that was significant to you? I'm referring to the first block of your report, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
Like I mentioned earlier, he had minor injuries on the face, on the torso, and minor injuries on the extremities. Again, they did not have any specific significance.
Okay. Did you also note? Did you also make notes with regard to the clothing, which could be seen in the original autopsy photographs?
Yes.
Okay. And his clothing appeared to still be wet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think you noted in your report, and some of the other medical examiners have testified to this, where they note that the frenula is intact.
Correct.
And where is that located?
Well, the frenula is that tiny strip of skin, mucosa actually, inside the lip. So you have the upper frenula and the lower frenula. Again, when somebody puts pressure on the mouth or somebody's punched in the mouth, you can get tearing of the frenula.
Okay, so that's something that's always carefully examined?
It's carefully examined. Again, it would be indicative of trauma to the mouth.
But other than the bite mark in the cheek, there was none here, correct?
Correct.
Did you also note that there were some minor abrasions on the torso and chest?
Yes.
In looking at the photographs, did you carefully examine the photographs of Brendan's genitals?
Yes, it did.
And was there any sign of injury there, either to the penis, the testicles, or the scrotum?
No.
Did you make any notations with regard to the condition of Brendan's hands?
Yes, it did.
And how did you classify that?
I know Dr. Feigen refers to it as maceration. I refer to it as washerwoman type changes. It's when somebody, if you take a bath for too long and your hands get all puffy, that's what we refer to as washerwoman changes of the hands. You can get that even post-mortem. So if a dead body is placed in the water, it develops those changes. So it doesn't imply that Brendan was in the water when he was alive. It's just a change that happens from a body, dead or alive, being in the water.
You also noted in your report that there was an abrasion above the left forehead in the area of the hairline that was surrounded by linear abrasions. Can you explain for us what linear abrasions are and whether or not that's significant?
Linear abrasions are, linear means straight line. Abrasion is a break in the skin, like a scrape. Again, it did not have any diagnostic significance.
You also noted that there are minor, recent appearing lacerations on the mucosal aspect of the left cheek. So we're talking about the bite mark again, is that right?
Correct.
And what did you say, or what did you see that made you say that the abrasions were recent?
Especially in the mouth, the mucosa heals fairly quickly, and you can see the healing. This looked like a fresh bite mark. It did not have the appearance of any healing.
And what would healing look like inside one's mouth?
It would start turning a little white, maybe some inflammation, things like that.
But you would be able to see that with your, just with your eyes, correct?
Correct. You'd see reddening around the bite.
Do you also recall seeing and making note of in your report an abrasion on the left lateral aspect of the neck right here?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and did that have any significance to you?
No.
Do you recall, in looking at it, and I can show you a picture of it if you like, do you recall having any opinions or ideas with regard to the freshness of that abrasion?
It had the appearance of a fresh injury.
With regard to the contusions or bruises that you saw, did you have an opinion with regard to whether those were fresh or older?
You're referring to the bruises?
On the elbow.
On the elbow. Those had yellow-green discoloration around the edge, so you have a purple bruise with yellow-brown discoloration around the edge. That would indicate that it's at least a few days old.
The next section of your report deals with the internal examinations that you conducted yourself and presumably reviewed by the other doctors. When you examined Brendan's organs, was there anything at all that caught your attention about them?
No.
And no fractures were observed or noted in there, correct?
That is.
Did the autopsy photographs that you reviewed from all three autopsies, did they all appear to be consistent with the written descriptions that you had from Dr. Siebert and Dr. Feigen?
Yes, they were.
So at some point you yourself looked at the microscopic slides, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The first one that you noted was skin at the location of a contusion. Do you recall looking at that slide?
Yes.
Now, at the time when you conducted your examination, had that contusion already been removed from the skin?
Yes, they had previously sectioned it.
Okay, and what was your understanding of where this contusion was located on Brendan's body?
On the upper right shoulder.
Okay, up in the, I'm going to mispronounce it, the clavicular area?
Clavicular.
Where your clavicle bone is, right?
Very cut.
And what did you note when you looked at that under the microscope?
What we look for when we're looking at bruises under the microscope is evidence of inflammation. When somebody sustains a bruise, the body starts a healing process and to repair the injury. So what happens first is when you get a bruise, you get a break in the blood vessels, and you can see the red blood cells that have come out of that broken blood vessels starting to infiltrate the tissues, mainly the fat tissues in the skin. The body then starts an inflammatory response where you get these white cells that go in and start scavenging the red blood cells and starting the healing process. Typically, you can see the white blood cells showing up somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. In the case of this injury, it was consisted exclusively of red blood cells, so there was no inflammation, which would indicate that this is a relatively fresh injury that was sustained close to death.
I think when you were earlier mentioning some of the slides, you said you had a particular concern with regard to the lungs.
Correct.
Because of Brendan's asthma condition, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did you have an opportunity to review the slides of the lung tissue?
Yes, it did.
And what did you see when you looked at those slides?
One of the things that we look for in an asthma attack would be mucus plug-in. Part of the asthma process produces mucus, which plugs the airways and makes it difficult for the person to breathe. So that was one of the first things I looked for, and there was no such mucus plug-in. There was some mild inflammation, which again would be consistent with a history of chronic bronchial asthma, but nothing to indicate that he had been going through an acute exacerbation of his asthma at the time of his death.
And did you review additional slides that were made from the organs?
Yes, it did.
And did you recall what that included?
As listed in my report, that included the heart, liver, spleen, kidney, spinal cord, the adrenal gland, the trachea, the windpipe, the esophagus, and sections from the brain.
And did you see anything abnormal in any of the slides from the organs that you just listed?
No, I did not.
Did you have an opportunity in conducting your case file review to review the results of the toxicology testing?
Yes, I did.
And what were those results?
The results were negative, in addition to what we refer to as an expanded panel, which covers alcohol and the common drugs of abuse, cocaine, opiates, benzodiazepines. It also included a comprehensive screen for commonly used prescribed drugs, and he also specifically had asked for the albuterol, the asthma medication that Brendan was on, and the carbon monoxide, and all those were negative.
Based on your observations during the post-mortem exam that you yourself conducted, and the toxicological results and the histological slides you reviewed, as well as your review of the case filing, which included all the crime scene and autopsy photos, have you formed an opinion concerning the cause and manner of Brendan Creato's death?
Yes, he did.
And do you hold that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And could you tell us, Doctor, what is your opinion?
In my opinion, given the suspicious circumstances surrounding the death and the location of the body, I ruled that as homicidal violence of undetermined etiology, and the manner of death I ruled as homicide.
And can you explain for us, as it's set forth in your opinion in your report, how it was you came to that conclusion?
Like I said, we do a thorough examination of the body to try and ascertain the cause of death. In the case of Brendan Creato, the findings were subtle and not specific for any specific cause of death. The circumstances surrounding the case are highly suspicious, and no explanation was provided as to how his body ended up at a creek a significant distance from his residence, especially in light of the fact that he was wearing socks that were clean, which would indicate that he did not walk there of his own volition, but that the body had been placed there by some other person.
I do not have any other questions, Dr. Falzon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Doctor, it's fair to say this is a close call, this homicidal violence of undetermined etiology.
Close call as...
I mean, initially you described it as undetermined, right?
Well, like you said, in my original letter, I said that it may have to be called undetermined based on what the circumstances and the additional testing shows.
Doctor, I want to ask you, I asked doctors Feige and Siebert, had Brendan's body been found on his living room sofa, what would you have made the cause and manner of death? What would you rule the cause and manner of death to be?
If the exact same finding...
Every single other aspect was the same as it is now, is the only variable unchanged, the location where Brendan's body was found.
I would probably rule that as undetermined. I'm a firm believer that when we issue cause and manner of death that say undetermined, the doctor has to issue an opinion, because obviously it doesn't mean that I don't have a clue what he died of, but I've gone through a process where I've eliminated certain possibilities.
Certainly. And Dr. Falzon, in the 3,500 plus autopsies you've conducted, you've certainly seen situations where people have moved bodies for all sorts of reasons, right?
People move bodies, correct.
And in this situation, you can't say where it was that Brendan Creato actually died, correct?
That is correct.
So, just based on what you see anatomically, physiologically, toxicologically, you couldn't say that he didn't die of some unexplained cause or accidental cause, and then his body was removed, right?
None that I could identify.
So what this means, doctor, is you get to this homicidal violence because there is just no other explanation for it, right?
Because there is no other explanation that would indicate how Brendan's body ended up at the creek without any evidence that he actually walked there of his own volition.
So if, for example, he had shoes on, that would change this to undetermined for you?
If he had his shoes on and they indicated that he had walked through, muddy waters, yes.
If a search of the river or the creek revealed a pair of shoes that would have fit in, or that a family member said were his, they dredged the river and they found them and they presented those to you, again, you would say undetermined or maybe drowning?
I would probably go undetermined, but again, that wasn't the issue in this case.
Certainly, no, I understand.
Sure.
You're an expert. I want you to talk about these hypotheticals.
Good, sure.
Doctor, you do the third autopsy, correct?
Correct.
So, all of the anatomical landmarks have already been moved or removed by doctors Feige and Siebert at that point, right?
Well, the body had been dissected. In a case like this, the orientation of the organs wouldn't have as much significance as, say, a gunshot wound, where you have to track the path of the bullet through the body. Here we're dealing with essentially normal anatomy, so the orientation wouldn't have as much bearing on the review of the case as it would have in, like I said, gunshot wound.
So, doctor, when you do this, what I'll call third autopsy, third or fourth viewing of the body, you actually find certain things that Drs. Feige and Dr. Siebert missed, correct?
I did.
Okay. The first is what you described as this petechia around the eyes, right?
Correct. They were subtle.
I mean, but a thorough examination by you revealed it.
Correct.
And you also find this mark in the mouth, right?
In the cheek.
In the cheek, inside cheek.
Correct.
Inside cheek. And Dr. Feige missed that, right?
Correct.
Dr. Siebert missed that, right?
Correct.
So if Dr. Feige made decisions about what tests to conduct or not conduct based on there being no trauma in the mouth, it would have been after he missed that what you described as a bite mark, right?
Could you repeat that?
If he said, for example, that he didn't see any signs of trauma in the mouth and therefore didn't do a rape kit, it would mean he missed, it was after he missed that bite mark in the cheek, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have to use a magnifying glass or a microscope to see that?
No.
And that isn't something like the bruise that was on the clavicle that showed up after death, right?
Correct.
That was there at or around the time Brendan died and was obvious when that first autopsy, would have been obvious at the time that first autopsy was conducted?
Sometimes bruising does become a little more pronounced hours or 24 hours later. What happens when when a person dies, you get lividity, which is blood settling by gravity. So you get this purple discoloration. That lividity may actually cover up some subtle bruises on the body. And that is why sometimes in similar cases, we typically hang on to the body for an extra 24 hours just to go take a second look at the body to see if any bruises show up.
Sure, but Dr. Falzon, to be fair, you don't believe that that's the situation here. You believe that that was obvious in the cheek
The one in the cheek, yes. I thought you were referring
to... What I'm saying is, unlike this bruise on the clavicle,
okay, yes.
The one in the cheek was obvious day one, right?
Correct.
And obvious day two or day three when Dr. Siebert did his autopsy.
Yes.
And obvious when you did yours, right?
Correct.
But you're the first person to find it.
I believe so.
In your initial letter you said that there were this differential diagnosis of homicidal violence that include a lot of things, right?
Correct.
Among them you include smuggling, right?
Correct.
And you said that that leaves a paucity of anatomic findings, right?
That is correct.
Not enough anatomic findings necessarily to make a firm decision?
Not enough to make a definite diagnosis.
But you actually checked for a few of the very subtle signs smothering could lead, correct?
Correct.
And each one of those was non-specific or indicative that there was no smothering, correct?
Correct. Like I mentioned, I dissected the facial soft tissues. Again, with blind pressure, you may create bruises during the process. I did not see any bruises.
So Dr. Feige didn't dissect the cheeks that far to look at the deep tissues?
No, he didn't.
And Dr. Siebert, he didn't either?
No.
And when you finally do, you find no evidence of any deep bruising that would be consistent with asphyxia?
Correct.
And the frenula?
Yes.
You said that's the little piece of mucosa that connects the lip to the teeth or the gums?
To the gums.
Okay. Often, not always, but often, that would be damage or cut in the case of smothering, right?
It could be, yes.
Not here. Not here, not in this situation.
It was not in this situation.
And these petechia, which again Dr. Feige and Dr. Siebert did not see, that could be indicative of asphyxia or smothering, right?
They could be, yes.
But in this case, there is not much of it, right?
Correct.
And given what you know about the scene and how his body was laid, it could very well be just from the blood pooling in the vessel burst.
It could be due to the position of the body.
You certainly can't say, though, that it's smothering based on this little bit of teeth.
Based on TK, no, I would not.
Doctor, you read the list of things that you considered before changing your opinion as to the cause and manner of death from undetermined to homicidal violence for us, right? You have that in front of you?
Yes.
Exhibit 382. Could you tell me what number, sir, is the toxicology report that you reviewed?
The toxicology would, I don't know if I listed specifically, but the toxicology is considered part of the autopsy report.
So, number one, Dr. Feige's autopsy report.
Correct.
You read the report that Dr. Feige would have attached.
Correct.
Did you check to make sure he attached the right one? Did you check to make sure he attached the right one, by the way?
Attached the right one.
Toxicology? It's okay, I've read the question. Doctor, of the 14 or so things that you listed, that you reviewed, 7 of them were police reports, right?
Correct.
Okay, you didn't actually speak to anyone on your own, fair?
No, I did not.
Okay.
The only person I communicated was Ms. Shaw.
Ms. Shaw. And Ms. Shaw was actually there the first day you did your autopsy.
That is correct.
October 16th, right?
Correct.
So Dr. Feige, first, Dr. Falzon, you said that a thorough investigation may not be able to identify the cause and manner of death in this tragic case, and in the absence of any conclusive findings in the autopsy or investigation, the cause and manner would have to be ruled as undetermined, right?
Correct.
After the autopsy, it's fair to say there were no conclusive findings, right?
The autopsy did not reveal any conclusive findings.
So, sir, is it fair to say then that somewhere in those 7 police reports you read that there was a conclusive finding that led you to change it from undetermined to homicide?
I think the most crucial piece of evidence was the socks. That there was no staining on the socks, and that I believe he had slippers and sneakers that were still found at the residence, and that there was no footwear that belonged to Brendan that was found anywhere close to the body at the time this body was found.
Doctor, it's fair to say that on October 16th, when you conducted your initial autopsy, you knew then that the boy had clean socks, right?
Yes.
So that isn't something that changed between November 13th of 2015, when you said undetermined, and April 17th of this year, the day before the trial started.
Yes, but if there were a pair of slippers that were found, 100 yards from the body later on, that would obviously change the scenario.
Sure, if they were washed down the river and never found, that wouldn't change anything.
Correct.
So, had those been found, it wouldn't have gone from undetermined to homicidal violence, right?
Correct.
It probably would have remained undetermined, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, you're saying that absent conclusive findings, either in the autopsy, which we already agreed is done, right?
Right.
Or in the police investigation,
Right.
it would be undetermined.
Correct.
And nothing changed after you read these 7 police reports about CCTV footage you suggested they look at, interviews of neighbors. Nobody saw anything that conclusively would allow you to change from undetermined to homicidal violence, right?
Like I said, the main issue was the absence of any footwear at the scene that would have explained why his socks were clean when the body was recovered.
But Doctor, you knew that already when you said undetermined, right?
But I didn't know that whether a thorough investigation of the area would reveal any footwear, close by.
But that wasn't going to make it homicidal violence. If they found that, it wouldn't have gone to homicidal violence, right?
If they had found the shoes at the scene, no, it would not have gone to
Okay,
homicidal violence.
so my question is, what is the conclusive finding, because there's none in the autopsy, what is the conclusive finding in the investigation, in those 7 police reports that you read, that made it go from undetermined to homicidal violence? It sounds like there was nothing conclusive, and your words are, absence of any conclusive findings in the autopsy, the investigation, the cause, and manner would have to be ruled as undetermined, right?
Right.
Those are your words.
Correct.
And there are no conclusive findings in the autopsy.
Correct.
And there are no conclusive findings in the police investigation, right?
Like you said, it's the
It's a
absence.
yes or no question, Doctor. There's no conclusive findings, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's undetermined.
No, it's not. Because I don't have a reasonable explanation as to how the body ended up at the creek. The investigation indicates that the body was placed there. I don't have a reasonable explanation as to how Brendan died. And absent of a logical explanation as to why the body was placed there, then that makes it a suspicious death and a homicide. I simply don't know what the mechanism in this case was. Like I mentioned earlier, it could be asphyxia, it could be drowning, it could be a drug or a poison that we're not aware of and it's not showing up on testing. So there's no reasonable explanation as to how Brendan came to die. The only indication is that his body was placed at the creek after he had died.
Doctor, we've agreed already, though, you've certainly seen situations where a body's moved for various non-nefarious reasons after it's died, right?
It could be.
And there's no sign that that's not what happened here, right?
I wasn't provided with any alternative explanation.
Right, nothing conclusive.
Nothing conclusive.
Okay, doctor, you said you just have no reasonable explanation, so that's why you come to this diagnosis of exclusion. You mentioned asphyxia as a possibility. Asphyxias can be accidental, right?
They could be.
Okay, you mentioned drowning. Drownings can certainly be accidental, right?
Accidental drowning, I think, is one of the leading causes in this age group.
For three-year-olds.
Right.
So, doctor, I understand and appreciate, and I'm trying to be smart with you when I say there is nothing conclusive that was found in the investigation as it was presented to you, or in the autopsy that suggests how Brendan died, right?
Correct.
And you said that absent something conclusive, the appropriate cause of death is undetermined and the appropriate manner of death is undetermined, right?
I think we've established the fact that the body did not get there of its own volition. That's what the basis of my ruling is. That the socks were clean. There was no footwear found at the scene. All the footwear we knew that belonged to Brendan was still at the residence. So I have no explanation as to how the body was.
You're saying that in one of those 7 police reports, there's a note that he only had one pair of sneakers and one pair of slippers?
Yes, I did see that.
That's what you're saying you saw?
That's what I saw.
In all of his wardrobe, at any of the places he lived, that's what you saw?
As far as I know.
Okay. What you mean is that you never saw evidence of another pair of shoes, right, Doctor?
Correct.
You don't mean that he only had one pair of shoes?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I understand. So, Doctor, do you mean to suggest you didn't mean it then when you said absent something conclusive, it would be properly labeled as undetermined?
Judge, I'm going to object to that. It's argumentative and inaccurate.
I think you're very smart.
Doctor, would you like to take it back that you said absent something conclusive, it would be undetermined since you agree there is nothing conclusive that you found in the year and a half between the letter and the report?
Like I said, the basis of my ruling was the fact that...
Doctor, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Judge, I'd ask the witness to be
Counsel,
loud.
let him answer the question. Counsel, let him answer the question. Here's another question, please.
Sure. Like I said, barring a reasonable explanation as to how the body ended up at the creek with clean socks, to me that makes it a suspicious death. And I do not know, after a thorough examination, we do not have a cause of death, but that still becomes a suspicious death, and therefore my ruling of homicidal violence of undetermined etiology. If I have an alternate explanation as to how the body ended up there, then I might revise my opinion and go undetermined. But I have no explanation as to how Brendan Creato's body ended up by the creek that day.
So does that doctor know you don't want to take it back? Is that the answer to my question? No, you still stand by absent something conclusive that's undetermined?
I think the lack of footwear is
Yes or no
conclusive.
question? It's a
Judge,
yes or no
I object.
Counsel, it's not a yes or no answer. He's answering the question. Please allow him to answer the question.
Yes, sir.
The lack of footwear present at the scene is conclusive evidence to me that Brendan's body was placed there, and that note was not, that he did not go there of his own volition, and most likely that is not the site where death occurred.
And that's information that you had November 13th when you set up the journey, right?
Like I said, I did not have a definite answer about whether a search of the area had turned up any further footwork.
Which still wouldn't have made it homicide warrant, right?
I'm sorry?
Which still would not have made it homicide warrant, right?
Correct. I mean, if there was footwork there, then you have to reconsider it.
Doctor, the police reports that you read, were they limited to, they weren't limited to the scene or anything like that, right?
No.
You read the 45-page report by Detective Michael Rhodes?
I reviewed that.
He explained his whole theory of the case, what he thought the motives were, who he thought ultimately committed this crime, right?
I don't know the specifics, but I did review the document.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I have no other questions.
For your direct counsel.
The first thing I want to ask you about is that you touched on, during your cross-examinations, the idea of lividity. And that is when the blood settles in the body after death, correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit number 244. Do you see any lividity in that photograph?
Yes, you do.
And tell me where you see it. This is already in evidence, just for the record.
So there's lividity on, this is a photograph of Brendan's back, slightly oblique, showing the lower back, buttocks area, and part of the back of the right arm.
Okay.
So you see lividity showing up in the back of the right arm, and you can see some lividity in the lower aspect of the right buttocks.
Okay. Pull that up, please. So when you're talking about lividity, you can see that in this picture. Here, you said on the lower part of the buttocks, correct?
Correct.
And up here on the arm as well, correct? So those are not injuries, is that correct?
No, when a person dies, the heart obviously stops beating and blood stops circulating through the body. At that point in time, it starts to settle by gravity. So if a body is lying on its back, blood will settle down on the back of the body and create this purple discoloration, which we refer to as lividity.
You also testified that you did an extensive facial dissection,
Yes,
looking for deep bruising, but you didn't see anything, correct?
correct.
If I understood your testimony correctly when you were on direct, you said you would not expect to see that if something like a soft pillow was used. Is that accurate?
Correct. And again, it depends on the extent of a struggle that the victim puts out. So if we have a young child or an elderly person, they would be expected to put up a less of a fight than, say, a 20-year-old male.
Okay. And would that also be affected by whether or not the individual may have been sleeping?
If
Or was
somebody,
asleep?
right, again, if somebody's taken unaware or they're intoxicated or drunk, then they'll be putting up less of a fight.
Dr. During, Mr. Piscino just asked you, part of your review included a review of the report prepared by Detective Rhodes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And did Detective Rhodes' report summarize some of the statements that he took in this case?
I believe it did, yes.
For instance, after reviewing the report, were you left with any impressions with regard to whether or not Brendan's own family members thought he would leave the apartment by himself? Do you recall any of that?
My recollection is that he would not have been expected to leave by himself. That even if he opened the door, he would ask for permission to open the door.
And do you have any recollection with regard to any fears that Brendan had that, again, family members expressed to Detective Rhodes?
My recollection is that afraid of the dark.
Did either of those two facts or either of those two statements that were provided by witnesses that he would not leave the house by himself and that he was afraid of the dark, did either of those two facts figure into your final opinion in any way, or do you not normally rely on such things?
I wouldn't rely heavily on that. I mean, somebody may be afraid of the dark, but they may be so upset they forget they were afraid of the dark.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not something I would rely heavily on.
Okay. I don't have anything else, Your Honor. Thank you, Doctor.
Briefly on that, sir. Doctor, what you in fact read was that DJ Creato told the police his son would leave, right?
Correct.
And DJ Creato told the police his son would do that because he's afraid of the dark, right?
That is correct.
But you understand that, like you said, that's not the be-all and end-all, right?
Correct.
You're obviously aware of sleepwalking, right?
Right.
And you know that that's, as a doctor, you know that's more common in children than in adults, right?
Correct.
And you know that's more common in asthmatics than in non-asthmatics, right?
That I wasn't aware of.
Doctor, after reading all of those reports, seeing everything that you said, you still can't tell us how Brendan died, right?
Objection, Judge. It's beyond the scope of the redirect.
You are going beyond the scope of the direct now.
Two more questions.
Let's go.
Can't tell us how he died, right?
Same objection.
Unallowed.
Okay.
I don't have a specific mechanism for it.
And to the extent you think it's homicide, you can't tell us who did it, right?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Let me sit there. Yes, counsel, that works, I'm saying. We've reached the point where we are going to take our morning break. We are 15-minute break, and then I have initials to discuss any aspect of the case, get through testimony or concepts you might have curiosity in the report, whether it's your iPhones, cell phones, anything else to research. We'll see everybody back here in 15 minutes.
Please rise.